How are you today? The improved package has arrived. We're having it fitted in time for FP1. Have a look at the factory report.
Thank you very much, Chris. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sauber Career Mode, part number 12 for round 12 here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit for the Belgian Grand Prix. And as you see right there, we've managed to get our second durability upgrade for the gearbox, which hopefully means we won't have to be taking any more gearbox penalties for the rest of the season, and hopefully for the rest of the time that we are with Sauber, which will be absolutely fantastic. We'll probably still have to be having to take engine penalties, but I'm hoping we can now start working on those reliability upgrades compared to the gearbox. And I'm hoping that the current gearbox we have in will be able to last for the remaining 3 races that is expected to last, and therefore we can then switch to the expected final gearbox for the final 6 races without having to take any penalties. But without further ado, now let's get into practice 1 with a slightly worn engine that we're going to go into. But yeah, let's get into it and see how many resource points we can generate from it.
Welcome to one of the most unpredictable tracks on the Formula One calendar. Welcome to Spa. It looks like the teams are removing the tyre warmers in the garages, so we should see some action shortly. The Spa circuit really is one of the most iconic tracks on the calendar, and Eau Rouge is one of the best corners in F1 history. A sweeping left, right, left with a blind summit.
Eau Rouge has seen some amazing moments throughout its history. I remember Mark Webber's fearless overtake on Fernando Alonso here in 2011. The whole crowd held their breath as Mark overtook the multiple world champion around the outside at 170 miles per hour.
Alright, here we are at this very famous Spa-Francorchamps circuit, ready to start off, as always, with the track acclimatization of the hardest compound tyre available, which, for this particular Grand Prix, was actually the soft tyre, which is interesting, because I think in previous Grand Prix, or previous years of this particular circuit, we've seen uses of the medium tyre, and I think also the hard compound tyre when the Pirelli tyres were incredibly degradable, especially back in 2013. But anyways, we're in the track acclimatization, and we were able to get the maximum available number of resource points available for this particular program, which was absolutely fantastic. We just got to make sure we try and keep accumulating up those resource points, see if we can try and get another upgrade on the car prior to the end of the season. But anyways, into the tyre wear program, and there's quite a few corners around this particular circuit where you can actually save quite a bit of the tyre. So for example, the corner we just went through, Pouin, and also this corner here, the Fagnes chicane, also Blanchimont, where you can easily lift off through there if you've got some time in your hands with regards to the lap delta bends. Anyways, we're now coming across the line. We are going to get the maximum available resource points from this particular program again, which was fantastic. We then moved on into fuel saving. Now, this is again a little bit tricky around this particular circuit, mainly because of the fact that I wasn't 100% sure whereabouts I could definitely save some fuel and also ensure that we could then still get the maximum or the lap time available to us. But anyways, after the first lap, which we were able to get good fuel saving in, we were able to get from the second lap, we were able to get the purple or the optimal fuel usage, which is absolutely fantastic. So it's 3 out of 3 so far. Then moved on into the qualifying program, which was actually in practice 2, because practice 3 apparently was meant to be washouts in terms of weather. So I thought, let's get the 2 practice programs in for the race strategy and also for qualifying in practice 2, all done in practice 2, just so we can then save the engine for practice 3. Unfortunately though, I don't think the race strategy will pay much help to us because the weather is expected to be poor on race day. But as you can see, we're only able to get the green objective for the qualifying program. It was quite tricky around this particular circuit. I think also the fact that we had an older engine components around this particular circuit for the practice programs resulted in us having a lack of power down the stretch. But anyways, we're now moving on into the race strategy, and we're able to get the maximum number of resource points available from this particular program, which is as always, which is fantastic. Which means we've now managed to get 4 out of 5 for this particular Grand Prix, which is a shame we weren't able to get the maximum available number of resource points overall this particular circuit. But there's things to work on and improve, and hopefully we can then use these resource points in a very good way after this particular Grand Prix, or maybe in the near future. As you can see, we're currently sitting on about 600, 700 resource points, and I'm trying to save as much up to try and get a a cost-cutting upgrade where we can all the upgrades for a particular component or side of the development tree will then become cheaper. So I'm hoping we can save up as many resource points for that, and I'm hoping that's hopefully that comes in for this particular Grand Prix. But if not, we'll have to wait until Italy. But until then, let's actually get into qualifying.
It's qualifying time at Spa, one of the mightiest tracks on the Formula One calendar. Long straights, up and downhill, Eau Rouge as well. This track isn't for the faint-hearted. When it comes to getting lap time out of this circuit, it's traditionally been about maximising top speed. Do you simply remove as much downforce as possible, hang on in the corners and max out down the straights?
Top speed is a key factor for this circuit. Even if you can achieve the same lap time as someone running less wing than you, chances are you'll find overtaking difficult if you have too much drag.
Alright, here we are in Q1, ready to start our opening lap. Unfortunately though, I don't really have much optimism in terms of our performance and pace around this particular circuit, because it's very high downforce demanding and also very straight line speed demanding as well, which unfortunately we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to both of those. I mean, we're not completely last like the Honda cars with the engine power, and also, but our aero performance is near the bottom. As you can see on the second lap though, it doesn't help the fact that we've actually got Stoffel Van Dorn trying to hold us up into the bus stop chicane on our second lap here, which means we are down on our delta as we exited the bus stop chicane. We were able to improve slightly on our initial lap, which was okay, but I guess we could have easily found a lot more time if we'd not had Van Dorn in front of us anyways. We now come on to our final flying lap coming through P1. We actually are up on our lap time. This is going to be our final attempt at the potentially getting out of Q1, but I very much doubt we're going to be able to do so. Mainly because of the fact, as I mentioned before, our car isn't really suited around this particular circuit. We actually are down on our time through the bus stop chicane. I think the tow from Van Dorn is the reason for that, but we've actually had a much better exit out of the bus stop chicane compared to last lap, and we have improved on time. And unfortunately, it means that we are out in Q1 once again, which is a real shame for us. I think that's 3 consecutive Grand Prix that we've been knocked out in Q1. That's mainly because of the fact that the last 3 circuits have been very high downforce demanding, as well as straight line speed demanding as well. But we did manage to out-qualify Lance Stroll, which is interesting, considering the fact that his Williams should be a lot faster than us down the straights. And also, I actually made a compromise on my race setup because of the fact that we've got the rain coming in for the race. I thought maybe it's a bit more of an advantage to sacrifice a little bit of performance in qualifying to then have that performance in the race. And fingers crossed we can then start moving up the grid right there. And also interesting is that Pascal Wehrlein was able to out-qualify both McLaren Hondas, which was fantastic. He is going to be starting on row 9 alongside Stroll. As we cut towards our resource point tally, we haven't got enough again for the upgrade that I wanted to get. We were now on to 800 resource points. But the main thing I'm showing the screen for you is that we've managed to actually beat Alonso in our rivalry, which is fantastic, which means we'll get a new rival for the next race in Monza. But anyways, let's now get into the race and let's see how we do in the wet conditions.
It's not going to be plain sailing for our drivers today, although with the sky falling as it is, perhaps sailing isn't too far from the truth. Anthony Davidson, could be a wet one today. Great to have you with us. What are your thoughts?
It is a touch damp, isn't it? Well, as a driver, there are 3 big things to worry about when racing in these kind of conditions: standing water, tyre temperature and visibility. Judging distance to the cars around you is really tricky when you're driving through the vast amounts of spray that these wet weather Pirelli tyres kick up.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Raikkonen, Max Verstappen and Ocon, Ricciardo, Perez, Sainz and Roman Grosjean, Kvyat, Magnussen, Felipe Massa and Hülkenberg, Palmer and Sauber, Lance Stroll and Pascal Wehrlein. Alonso and Stoffel Van Dorn completes the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Okay, don't worry about making places into one, it's far too tight. Concentrate on a clean exit so you get good momentum down the Camel Straight.
Thank you, Jeff, for that advice. Let's have a quick look at the race strategy, which is probably going to be obsolete by the time we get to the points in which it starts becoming heavy rain. As you can see from the weather pattern, it starts off with light rain and then moves to heavy rain. So the strategy really is what to be on that wet tyre at the correct moment. So we've got to make sure we get that timing spot on. I mean, there's been a couple of occasions where I've misjudged the timing in a couple of races, especially I think also Austria. In Austria was the main reason as to why we lost a couple of places in that particular Grand Prix. But yeah, the main aim is really to try and move up as far as possible in these particular conditions. I'm a little bit more hopeful than I was in Hungary because of the fact that in the Hungary race we had the track drying out, and of course our pace then dropped off compared to some of the guys that were when compared to some of the other teams that have got much better running pace than us. So hoping that the rain does stay around for the whole Grand Prix and we don't run into any issues as we head up towards La Source. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen. We don't have any problems, and let's get on with the race. Lights out and away we go, and unfortunately it's another bad-ish start for us compared to or like what we had in Hungary as Stroll gets past us, but then we've been forced out onto the grass because we kind of misjudged the braking point into our source, and that's really cost us a bit of time. At least we didn't lose the front wing as Wehrlein goes up the inside of us, and now we've dropped down into 18th, and now Alonso is overtaking us, so we're now down into 19th as we head up towards Eau Rouge. Alonso's straight line speed is not going to be very good though, so we could have a very close encounter as we go side by side through Eau Rouge. Oh my goodness me, how did we not make contact and have a massive accident through that particular section of the circuit? It's very hard to go side by side through that particular part of the circuit. It's usually a single file through there, but how we got away with that, I have absolutely no idea. Let's have a quick look at the replay of the start. As you can see, we get beaten to the start by Stroll, and then we're just forced out onto that left-hand side, which means I just had to take to the grass just to make sure I didn't run into the back of the Renault and I didn't lose my front wing. So that really compromised my then exit, which then Wehrlein got up the inside of me, and then meant I was on the curbing, and that's why Alonso got in front of us. But then I start fighting back through the Eau Rouge section, as we can see, going side by side through all the way up the corner. We just about get away with it with no contact as well, which is really good driving from both of us to make sure that there wasn't any sort of contact which would have speared one of us off into the barriers, which is where I think Magnussen and Fisichella actually crashed in 2005 and 2016 respectively. So we tried going around the outside of Wehrlein through Rivage to take the inside line for the corner with no name, and we managed to retake the position away from Wehrlein. We're now up into 17th place. Still on lap 1 as we now head up towards P1. We're again still on lap 1 as we now head up to the other fastest section of the circuit, going through Blanchimont now. But unfortunately, I kind of misjudged it. I lost a little bit of aerodynamic performance, and we've run wide, and that's going to allow possibly Wehrlein an opportunity to go up the inside into the bus stop chicane. But he decides to think better of it and decides to stick behind as we now try and get back on terms with Lance Stroll as we now come up towards the start of lap number 2. As we now come through Stavolo, etc. We're now onto lap 2. It's a little bit trickier on this particular circuit, and this time I make another mistake on the exit of Stavolo, and again Wehrlein's going to have an potential opportunity to have a go at us, and that's also going to cost us a massive amount of time to stall, which means we're going to have to waste about a lap and a half or so to try and bring that gap back down to Stroll. We've got some team radio though that's coming in right about now. Just have a quick listen to the engineer. So as you heard from Jeff, it looks like the rain is due to get heavier within probably the next couple of laps, but that's not our main priority at the moment. We're trying to see if we can try and repass Stroll after he overtook us on the opening laps. We go for a late braking manoeuvre into the bus stop chicane, past the Williams car, and then take the inside line also for the second part of the corner. We're able to take that position away, and we're finally back up into the position that we started the race in 16th place. So we've taken 4 laps to get to basically move nowhere, but it's one of those things. At least we didn't have any sort of damage to our car, which was very beneficial, especially as to what happened at the start. But as you can see, that's the replay of us getting much better traction on the exit of the corner to get past Stroll. We're now on to the back of Magnussen as we start lap number 6 as we come in towards La Source. He brakes a little bit more than I expected him to do, so I think we made a little bit of contact with the Haas, but thankfully no damage. But the big killer there was that we got onto the curb, and unfortunately we lost a lot of speed as we now head up towards Eau Rouge and then down the Camel Straight, which is a bit frustrating. So we had to waste a little bit of time trying to get that gap back down. As you saw right there, I actually say to box at the end of lap number 7 because I think the rain is starting to get a little bit heavier. I'm trying to anticipate the fact that these drivers are now going to struggle on these intermediate tyres. So if we can get onto the wet tyre right about now, and we might be able to make some inroads into these, we might be able to overtake these next few cars in front of us. As we now go up the inside of Magnussen into Rivage to take 15th place away. We've gained 1 position now from where we started. We're now trying to challenge Nico Hulkenberg, but he closes the door as we now head into the corner with no name, and then down the hill towards Puon, which means we're probably not going to make any more progress now as we now head through into the bus stop chicane. But actually, Hulkenberg and Massa both come into the pits at the same time as us, so it's going to be interesting to see what sort of tyres those two drivers end up putting on, because if it's too early for full wets, they're probably going to go on the intermediates, which means they're going to have to make an additional stop once the rain does intensify and the track gets even wetter. But it looks like, yes, on Massa's perspective, there is another set of intermediates that are going on there, so it probably means Hulkenberg is also going to go on to the intermediates, but we're going to switch onto the wets. It's a bit of a gamble, but down the field we might as well take a risk with this sort of things. We now exited pits. Unfortunately, we understeer wide on the exit though, and very nearly crossed the white line of the exit of the pit lane right there, which was would have been a bit embarrassing, but thankfully no penalty for us. But the real killer is the fact that the tyres, or the full wet tyres, aren't just quite ready for the conditions just yet. So I think we might have come in 1 lap too soon as we now cut towards the end of lap 8. As you can see, there's a couple of other drivers that are making some pit stops, and that includes Lance Stroll. And it looks like he has changed onto a new set of intermediates as we understeer wide into the source, and that is Stroll exiting the pits in front of us, which is absolutely frustrating right there. It means that we've lost the position again to the Williams, but thankfully enough, actually the weather does deteriorate a little bit more, and the track conditions also deteriorate as a result, and Stroll is in straight away 1 lap later for full wet side. So at least we may regain the position that we lost to Stroll right there, and they're going to drop massive amount of time in terms of track position, and also time. They're going to be right at the back of the field. So we understeer wide again, and that's actually going to cost us to the position to Magnussen. As you can see, he's managed to jump us as well on the full wet. He's now on the full wet tyres, so that's a bit of a shame. But we are now back up into the position that we were in prior to our pit stop. But the one man that actually gained quite a lot out of this was Fernando Alonso, who stayed out all the way until the crossover point for the full wet tyres. So really good strategy from his perspective. Maybe an opportunity for Alonso to actually score some points at this particular Grand Prix. We've now cut all the way to lap number 11. It was really a battle nip and tuck between myself and Magnussen. We've now come across the line. We've now just gone past halfway into the race. We're now going to see if we can try and repass the thing as we now head up towards the source. Going to go up the inside of the Haas and retake that position, which was fantastic. And we now try and accelerate down and see if we can try and catch up to the rest of the field, because this Sauber, obviously, as I mentioned before, seems to have quite a bit of pace on some of the more average midfield cars. So hoping we can catch up. As you can see right there, we're currently sitting in 12th place, and we're closing in on the back of Daniel Kvyat, who's also being held up, I think, by a Force India. That's only because of the fact that the Force India's Mercedes-powered Force India is preventing him from overtaking. So we now come through the Fania chicane, as you can see, getting really close to the back of the Russian right there, who's squirming I think Ocon was squirming all over the place in front of us. But there's now a safety car that's been triggered, and that's because of a retirement for Nico Hulkenberg, which means that could be really, really handy for us. As we now go on board with Hulkenberg, he actually had just passed our teammate Pascal Wehrlein, but unfortunately for him, he didn't get too much further, as he now pulls over to the side, takes out the 100-meter board prior to the Puon corner, as we now cut back on board to our perspective. We go a little bit wide into the corners. We now head up towards the bus stop chicane. Again, I didn't see Kvyat braking that in front of us. That the spray is so bad in these conditions. I very nearly ran to the back and I had to take some avoiding action, but thankfully we avoided any sort of collision. But meanwhile, we go on board with Valtteri Bottas here. We're now heading up towards Eau Rouge. That's the safety car actually heading up towards the Eau Rouge corner. Now we're on board with Perez. The safety car is getting even closer and closer to that Eau Rouge corner, so there could be a real hazard here. I don't know why the safety car is continuing to go as we now go back on board with our perspective as we head up towards Eau Rouge. And there's the safety cars in the middle of the road, and oh my goodness me, Ocon and Kvyat have been completely taken out by the safety car parking up in the middle of the road. I don't know what the hell Bert Meilander is doing. what the hell is going on here with regards to the safety car. There's a couple of other drivers that looks like have retired as well, as we're now down to 16 runners here. So that was some real stupidity there. I think hopefully Codemaster can fix this for future games or either in a patch. This is on board Ocon's perspective. He just slams right into the safety car, loses the front wing. I think he gets hit from the behind by Kvyat, and then he gets another hit from the Haas, I think, of Magnussen. It's absolutely insane. This is now on board Kvyat's perspective. As you can see, he just goes straight into the back of Ocon, which then, I think the right rear then breaks off Ocon's car. And this is Magnussen's perspective. He then slams into the stricken Force India, and he is also out of the race, which is insane. I don't understand why there wasn't any yellow flags in play. Now we're going on board with Alonso as we now come up towards Aru, seeing all the stricken carbon fibre. He actually gets offline. He's also hits the safety car, and he is also out of the race. Goodness me. All this carnage be caused by some stupid driving from the safety car. As we now go on board with Jolyon Palmer, he gets a little bit of contact, I think, from Kvyat, who's actually trying to recover. I think he only has front wing damage. That's the reason why Kvyat is still going. But anyways, back on board with our perspective, we're trying our best to catch the safety car here. But I'm not particularly sure what the hell happened here. But we've got more drama as Kimi Räikkönen is out of the Grand Prix, the championship leader of this particular season, who's been running away with the championship majority of this year, but he is out of the race. He's actually leading the Grand Prix as well as one of his favourite circuits, but the Ferrari engine has let go on the back straight prior to Blanchimont, and that's actually handed the lead to his teammate Sebastian Vettel, and also second place to Daniel Ricciardo, which is a real shame for the Finn. He probably wants to extend that championship lead a little bit further, but now the championship will get a little bit closer due to the fact that he is now out of the race, and his teammate Vettel is going to be the one that's going to profit from it and possibly get back-to-back wins for the first time this year, as we now managed to catch to the back of Sergio Perez finally after a long period of trying to catch that safety car. But safety car is getting a little bit glitchy in terms of me trying to overtake Perez, and then says to stay behind Perez. So again, more bugs and glitches going on with the safety car here as we now come towards the end of lap 18. We're coming through the second sector and ending now into the final sector. The safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. Or who knows what more carnage is awaiting here, as Vettel will now lead the pack away ahead of the two Red Bulls of Ricciardo and Verstappen. I think the fact that both Mercedes actually made an early pit stop is the reason why the Red Bulls are currently in the podium positions, but I expect those two Mercedes to actually make some ground up and actually get into those podium positions in the very near future. As Vettel now gets the race going again, we're now going to see if we can try and cling on to the back of Sergio Perez. We now go back on board with our perspective. We're trying to see if we can overtake Perez. I'm not sure where the exact safety car line is though, so we're having to stick behind the Force India at the moment. I didn't really want to overtake him illegally. He's now come through the bus stop chicane, so unfortunately for us, no real gains for us. But as you can see behind, we've got Jolyon Palmer and Felipe Massa battling for the final points position here. Real opportunity for Palmer to possibly get his first points of the year since the opening Grand Prix of the season, but it looks like Massa's managed to take the position away from the Renault. I think that's because of the fact that Massa just caught the safety car just as the race was restarting. He's taking advantage of a very slow and tardy looking Palmer as we now accelerate towards the start-finish straight. Massa's going to have the superior straight line at speed advantage. We now head up towards the La Source hairpin, but Massa's now taken 10th place away from the Renault, which is a little bit of a shame on Palmer's perspective, but you never know, he might be able to regain it if there's some more problems as we now come towards the end of lap number 19. Just 3 laps to go after this, and Massa's actually gone into the pits, so that means Palmer is now back into the points. I don't know why the hell Massa didn't decide not to pit during the safety car. It's really strange why the Williams didn't pit there. There's some really weird strategy calls going on in this particular Grand Prix as we now accelerate towards Rouge again, but unfortunately we're again not close enough to Perez to mount a challenge. We're now on to lap number 21, just 2 laps to go here, and Perez is trying his best to stick with the car in front. We've also got, I think, a problem for Jolyon Palmer, because the engineer is actually in my ear saying there is a problem, and also there's a yellow flag behind, so it must be for Jolyon Palmer. So what the hell has happened to the Renault now? There's more carnage that's taking place throughout this race, but it looks like, as we go on board with Palmer's perspective, it is a right rear puncture for Palmer, which is absolutely shocking. But what's even more shocking and amazing is the man that's going to profit from this is our teammate Pascal Wehrlein. He's going to go up into 10th place here, and he's just under 2 laps away from scoring his first point of the year, and potentially a double point score for Sauber for the first time since goodness knows when. I think probably 2015 is most likely. Meanwhile, we're going back actually in front of us. This is actually a battle that's taking place in front of us between Romain Grosjean and the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. So the Haas car of Grosjean is having an insane race. He's going around the outside of the Dutchman. And what would really be his pretty much his home race, as he goes around the outside, then takes the inside line for Lecombe, and is now into an unbelievable 5th place, which is not good for us considering the Constructors' Championship positions. As we're now onto the final lap here, Verstappen seems to be struggling with some sort of performance issues here, as he's now holding up his former teammate and Toro Rosso driver Carlos Sainz. We now head up towards Lecombe again. Sainz trying to go around the outside like he did on Grosjean, and it looks like he's going to make the move stick. And the Red Bull Junior Junior team is going to overtake the senior Red Bull team for an unbelievable 6th place. It's going to be a big chunk of points for both Haas and also Toro Rosso here today. Following that, as we now head up down the hill towards Rivage, we're trying to take advantage of the fact that Perez is getting now held up by Verstappen, but unfortunately for us, no real overtaking opportunity right there. As we now come towards at the exit of the Fang chicane, we've got some more yellow flags that are in play. That is still Jolyon Palmer trying to make his way back to the pits here, so there could be a hazard for Wehrlein to dodge here, considering what happened in Silverstone with drivers with punctures, the amount of retirements that were caused by this. But this is on board with Wehrlein, but thankfully Palmer is off the racing line, and that means Wehrlein's able to just get through there. He's only just got a few more corners to go, and he's very close to scoring his first point of the year. We're now coming towards through the exit of Blanchimont, and Vettel's now won the race. So we're now going to see if we can try and make a late braking manoeuvre on Perez. He's going to try and go round the outside of Perez, then take the inside line for the final corner, and we've stolen 8th place on the last corner, forcing him out wide to ensure he doesn't have a good exit, and we've taken 8th place right at the end there. But and as we now go on board with a replay, as you can see, Perez is trying to find a way past Verstappen, but the fact that he was held up a little bit in the braking zone means that we had an opportunity round the outside, and he gave us the space on the inside right there, and probably didn't expect us actually to come up the inside, so that's why he left the room. But yeah, we've managed to take 8th place. But the big story here is that Pascal Wehrlein is going to come home and take his first point and ensure Sauber get a double point score. Fantastic stuff from the German after starting from 18th place. Great stuff also to fend off the McLaren.
So, another excellent win from Ferrari. And as we can see, it's time for the podium, and as the drivers make their way out, there's a familiar red suit making its way to the top step. Fantastic win for Ferrari. And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. Well, the gap at the top of the championship has been cut down after a difficult race today for our championship leader. And now I'd like to ask you, Anthony Davidson, who was your driver of the day?
Probably Stoffel Vandoorne. You know, strong pace, good work with the strategy, just a very complete drive, I think.
And now let's take a look at the constructors' standings. It was a tough race for our championship leaders who lose ground at the top of the table. It was also a strong Grand Prix from Haas F1 this weekend. Fantastic work from the American team to move themselves further up the table. After all that excitement, it's time for a lie down, I think. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye until the next race.
So, confirmation of the results of an insane Belgian Grand Prix. Vettel wins with Ricciardo in second, Bottas third, Hamilton fourth, Grosjean an excellent fifth, Sainz an excellent sixth, Verstappen a disappointing 7th place, myself an 8th, Perez in 9th, and an excellent performance from Pascal Wehrlein to fend off Vandoorne for the final points position in 10th place, and also an excellent drive from Vandoorne himself, starting from 20th and only just finishing outside the points, very close to scoring McLaren's first point of the year, but unfortunately for them, they are still on 0 points. We now have a quick look and see. Look at all the retirements that we had in the race. Jolyon Palmer also had a penalty added onto his time, but I don't think if it hadn't been for that puncture though, he would have still finished in that 10th place. But thank goodness, good for us that he did pick up that puncture and we were able to get that double point score in right there. Hopefully we can get some more of those in the near future once we get the car a little bit more competitive. As you can see, this is the championship now. Raikkonen's lead has been cut at the top. He's only now 41 points clear of his teammate Vettel. whilst near towards the top 10. Grosjean's moved up into 9th following his successful result, and Sainz has moved up into 11th place. So good result. Those two good results allowed those two drivers to move up. As you can see, right at the bottom here, Pascal Wehrlein moves up into 17th ahead of Stroll, Van Dorn, and Alonso, which is absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, he doesn't get ahead of Jolyon Palmer, maybe because of the fact that Palmer got that 10th place first, and I think it's the result but is based on countback. But anyways, here's the Constructors' Championship. No real changes except for the fact Mercedes do make a little bit of an inroad into Ferrari, but the big change for us is that Haas's good point scoring finish today has meant that they've gone back in front of us into 5th. This is going to be a real ding-dong battle between ourselves and the American team as we now headed towards as we're in the second half of the season. Also, Toro Rosso scoring has meant that they are now trying to join that little battle between us and Haas, so it could easily be a very easily be a three-way fight. And you never know, if Williams decide to get that act together, they might also join in with the fun. But I think it's more of a three-way fight towards the end of the season for 5th place. But anyways, we're now into the resource tree thing, and you know what I decided to do? I actually want to try and get one more chassis weight upgrade, but mainly I want to try and see if we can get these upgrades cheaper and make our factory efficiency a lot better. So the aim will be now to try and get this factory efficiency upgrade, hopefully for Monza, which will be fantastic, and then we can possibly get that chassis weight reduction, that next chassis upgrade, either for Singapore or maybe Malaysia. But we'll have to wait and see how many resource points we'll have in the end. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I certainly did. It was such an insane race to drive, so many close calls for me to dodge, and it was just a very good result despite the poor qualifying that we had, and the fact that we managed to get a double point score is absolutely insane. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope if you did, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Also comment to see if there's anything I can do to improve the overall series and quality of these videos, and I'll see you all for the next race, which will be the final round of the European season in Season 1, which will be the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. So until then, see you later.